Hi, and welcome back to Books and Beyond. As always, another fantastic guest, another great episode lined up for you. It's not often that I have a guest who has been involved in the world of RPA and intelligent automation as long, if not longer than I. So we are very blessed to have Nikki North on Books and Beyond with us this week. Nikki, who we will dive into her past career, is currently as intelligent automation lead at New Day. And it's a great pleasure to have you. So hi, Nikki.
Hi, Wayne. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for making time in your day to come on Bots and Beyond. I'm sure we're going to have a great discussion as always and delve into some of those past experiences that you have, because you ooze automation out of just about every pore over your career over the last decade. So loads of great insights I'm sure we're about to get from the past, and also delve a little bit into what you think about in the future of IA. So as is standard for our guests, our intro. So, Nikki, if you could confirm who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Yes, of course. So, I'm Nikki North. I am the intelligent automation leader over at New Day, and I look after the intelligent automation capability, which includes enterprise RPA, desktop RPA, human-in-the-loop technology, and OCR technology. And that makes up our offering that we provide to New Day. Why I do it is RPA and intelligent automation is something I've always been passionate about. I've been passionate about it for so many years. I've been on the other side of our industry. So, in those contact centres, in the operational areas, I used to get really frustrated with some of the processes and things I had to do. And that's when I first got exposed to RPA as a technology. And I'd kind of just grabbed onto it because I could see the amount of change and the amount of flexibility it gave people in business areas. And so that's why I do what I do. And that's why I've carried on doing what I'm doing for, I think I'm entering year 18, because I started working in RPA around 2006.
I didn't quite know it was 2006. So wow on that. Talk to us a little bit about your background then. So, going back to 2006 and, your initial forays into the world of automation. Those who've listened to the podcast will know it wasn't called RPA. It wasn't as sexy a name as RPA back in the day. So, you can really open up the audience to those very early days before the marketeers had got involved. So talk to us about that past.
Yeah, so very much 2006 was my first foray, as you say, into what we now call RPA. It didn't have a name, and when people asked me what I did for a job, I didn't really know how to explain it, to be quite honest. And the first task that I did was control room pre-virtualization. So I had 2 little PCs, 2 switch boxes, and we had about 10 processes that we ran in our collections area. That's the first place that I started, and this was when I was working at the Cooperative Bank, which was one of the foundation customers for one of the big RPA providers. And I basically, from that footing, spent the next 10 years just learning with the industry as it evolved, the evolution of the process of analysis, writing a PDD, things that didn't really exist before that. I learned how to test RPA and helped come up with some of the governance around how you would, test in production versus testing in test environments. I know that's sometimes been a hot topic, especially if you don't have exact replicas of UAT environments, for example. That's an issue that I've come across in lots of companies and people that I've spoken to, because we all know if you've not got an exact replica of a production environment, testing an RPA process is pretty pointless. And I also trained as a developer, so I got an accreditation as a developer. And after that sort of 10 years doing all the different roles within a COE, I then got the chance to build up my own centre of excellence and establish my own governance, my own methodology, and build my own team and my own ethos on how I would recruit and train people, and how I would try to create a cross-skilled capability within that COE. And that's the vision that I've always had for that sort of capability and how we deliver RPA. So that's what I was able to do through all those years.
I always talk about why I feel, so passionate about, let's just say, contact center. It was something I've spent 20 years working in, and I started off, at the very ground as an advisor, like you have started off, in the control room, managing processes, becoming accredited as a developer. You built up at every level, and therefore you just understand all of the different nuances around, from development and I guess process discovery all the way through to managing stakeholders at senior levels, building business cases, managing P&Ls. And so, having that breadth of experience is really going to stand you in good stead. And obviously the capability at New Day was not a new one when you went to work there, and certainly it's been established. So going in as a leader to an established COE is kind of what you've done for New Day. Talk to us a little bit about the current state of play. Certainly in the early days, RPA was very much seen as a sticky plaster, for example. In a mature COE, one that's been going for a number of years, are you starting to see that become a bit of a reality where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. The RPA program at New Day, I wasn't here when it was brought in, but I know it was brought in to support some of the operational efficiencies alongside a huge initiative that we undertook to decide to develop our own core platform and systems here at New Day. So didn't want to be reliant on suppliers and wanted to build our own platform, which we have done very successfully. Obviously, that's not a quick journey. That's not something that happens overnight, and that's something that takes a long time. So it's a long journey that we've embarked on. And initially, RPA was used to, like I say, support the business functions while that was being undertaken. Crucially as well, some of the processes that we were running were then able to be used as requirements for the system because we were already processing those either transactions or working through those processes, whatever it was. We were able to provide a bit of a framework for how things should look. As some of the modules have been delivered, we've been able to support the MVP going in by doing a couple of little, pieces around the periphery to allow it to go in, and then that's then been replaced. And now we're getting to a position where as more and more of the modules, almost all of the modules are now implemented. And for the first module that went in, for example, obviously that's on sort of the 2030th revision of that module, and more functionality has been added. So as functionality is added to that, we've been switching off some of the RPA processes and moving it from that sort of temporary RPA environment into a structured and API environment, which obviously comes with the service wrapper and the sort of 24/7 support, etc., that you would expect for things that make up our core service and that make up our core customer process.
Is this the end of intelligent automation then for New Day? Or is there an evolution that's happening? I mean, we did always talk about, and you'll know this from the Oath days.
Mm-hmm.
We did always talk about pontoon bridge versus Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sydney Harbour Bridge is going to take a long time, but IT are building it. And these pontoon bridges were able to stand up very quickly, get benefit, et cetera, et cetera. So it sounds like the reality of that, it feels like it's taken a long time, but maybe the reality is there now, that we do have IT catching up with our no-code, low-code revolution. And this sounds like a great example of where that's actually happening. Fantastic. So do talk to us though. Is it the end for intelligent automation within New Day, or where next?
So it's absolutely not the end of intelligent automation. There's absolutely a lot more work that we can do. And so the core systems essentially support our core operational areas. So our customer services and fraud and collections, and obviously all those customer facing roles and all those people that are operationally keeping the business moving. We've obviously got all the peripheral areas as well that sit alongside that support the business. So finance, risk, people team, all those other services. They still very much are benefiting from RPA, and we're maybe focusing a little bit more on some of those areas and supporting in that. There are also always opportunities, even in those customer service environments, for RPA, because it may be something that just doesn't quite fit with an API environment. It's something that we need to do quickly. And as you say, even though IT have caught up, there still is backlogs, there's still, an agenda of things that need to be delivered. So it may be something that we sit down with our architecture guys and say, do you know what? You will be delivering this as part of the platform, but eyes wide open, having the right conversation and everyone agreeing, actually, we're going to do this in RPA. And we know it's only going to be there for 6 months. But as you say, it's a pontoon bridge that will get us to where we need to be. there's always going to be those opportunities for us to look at. And we're also diversifying as well into some desktop automation, and we're exploring what that different capability will look like. It will give us different use cases. It will unlock different kinds of values. And hopefully, instead of it being an enterprise RPA where you need a certain level of case, not necessarily financial business case, it could be risk-based or it could be customer-led, customer journey, any of those other benefits that RPA gives us all the time. Doesn't need to be one of those. It will allow us to unlock maybe some more colleague benefits and allowing people to take some ownership of their own activities. And so that's another stream that we're looking into now to diversify, like I say, what it is that we're delivering in RPA.
I think that's really good to know for the industry as a whole, that regardless of advancements in core platforms, that there is still a role around the edges, and you just diversify the team, you diversify the user cases. And it's interesting how you're moving from, let's say, unattended into the realms of attended. It'd be great to know, the type of opportunity that attended is able, let's say, to grasp, where it might not necessarily make sense on the unattended side. So I don't know if you've got any examples off the top of your head where attended type automation would be, the right type of solution for you guys.
Yeah, I think one of the use cases that we've used it for is where it's one of our risk areas, gets lots of different reports. It's one particular gentleman it's his job once a month to take all these reports, and he has to do some manipulation with them, cut and splice them a little bit and save them down into a document. Now that is obviously, all those are based apps here. So we're using Power Automate to facilitate that. That's a process that we've built. That takes that gentleman the best part of 2 days of a month. So for him, it's a huge thing that he does. If he wasn't there, would anyone else necessarily know how to do it? Probably not. And so there's a couple of elements there. So it gives us the security of the process being documented and then being able to be replicated by anyone. And it also gives this particular gentleman 2 days of his life back every month, and it allows him to click a button, go and make his brew that he'd been making anyway, even though it takes over his laptop and obviously reduces the availability he's got. But he can go off and do something else, comes back, and his 2 days of work is done in about sort of 10-15 minutes. And that's the kind of use case that we're looking at for desktop automations.
Fantastic. Now, I guess that they come with a whole new set of challenges as well. As you start to think about desktop, maybe you start to think about smaller individual automations. As a big grown-up COE, I guess they're not probably the types of automation that you want to be undertaking yourselves. So talk to us. I guess this is part of a citizen movement. This is the desktop side, more akin to individual automations, developed, thought up. How does that work by the citizens? Talk to us a little bit about that operational side of moving into desktop versus unattended, because I guess that is a different model for you.
It's a very different model, and if I'm honest, we're still figuring out a lot of that, and I don't think that's unique to us. I think that as I say, as citizen development movement, there's a lot of other companies just trying to figure out what the best thing to do is. So we've had a look at it, and the way that we're framing it is we're going to do some education pieces with some of those areas first. So like say finance, risk and people team. And once we've done some education with them around what sort of things can be automated, we want to understand what sort of opportunities they've got. And then it will be a different model for us, because rather than us build the process and run it like we do now, what we're actually going to be doing is allow business areas to build their own capability. And so our role will be more providing support, guidance and education. And I mean, I've mentioned education about 3 times because to me, I think that is the key thing. Educating them not just on the technical parts of how to build it, maybe what your standards should be and things like that, and how to support and how to look after it, but just the understanding of the implications of putting something into an automation, what can go wrong, why, how the business teams are reliant on it, and therefore why it needs to be properly documented, why it needs to come under governance. We're going to try and make it a light governance. We don't want to put people off, and obviously we don't want people to be required to become intelligent automation analysts to be able to do full documentation, but we do need to keep some control and measure on what's being done. And if if things were to go wrong, what is that process aiming to do, so we can provide support to the teams. And the key thing for us is going to be a centralised register. We think that's going to be the key for us, is everyone who we're working with, who are doing these automations and are using this capability and are gaining those skills. We don't want to clip their wings. We just want them to come to us, register what they're doing, have a quick conversation to make sure it is the right thing to be doing, because we've got lots of experience on what can go wrong when you automate things and what needs to be thought around. So that's the approach that we're taking. It's going to be education, really, and then as much support and guidance as we can with a theme of governance, I think, running through the middle of that.
I think the thing I like there is, look, we don't want to clip people's wings, but we want to make sure that they're supported. I mean, certainly the feedback that I've seen from both people who have been given the opportunity to be a citizen developer, as well as organisations in general, is that there is a fine line between, and actually, it's a good balancing act between not enough governance and too much, not enough support as opposed to too much. More often than not, it's definitely, given on the lower side versus the higher side, more often than not, and also time. Like being given time to do this, as opposed to it being, okay, well, you already have a day job, you already have a 40-hour working window, of which it is incredibly full. If you want to automate these tasks to free up time, well, you have to do that in your own time to free up time in your day to be able to do other things. So time is, it's also one of those things that you can give to an employee in order to help them make their work. So I think it's a really, and continues to be a really interesting topic about, how and what is needed from an employee, from a COE, from a risk, from a compliance perspective, all of these things. Again, I don't know if anyone has got all of the answers all of the time. And I think it does differ by industry. I think it does differ even by company to company. And for anyone who heard the episode with Joe Bletchley, again, they had really built a culture of citizen developer, and they'd seen some really fantastic results as a result of building this culture, which has also seen people promoted from within, change roles, really get the bit between their teeth. And so it is absolutely possible, but you're so right, Nikki, that it is very different to your traditional centralized or federated COE. And so you do have to relook at this and almost rewrite the rules that you're going to follow in order to be successful. So, it's great that you're on the journey. And of course, I'm sure myself and the rest of the audience will look forward to hearing back from you on how that is going. So, Nikki, I think we're probably at the end of today's episode. I would like to just, before we do finish, you've been around this industry as long as anybody, and so you've clearly kept involved. You've had a number of different roles across different organizations within this particular industry. We're in 2023 now. We're seeing huge advancements in the role that AI is playing across just about every area you can imagine. And generative AI, as we record, is in the news everywhere right now. Talk to me a little bit about what you think you're going to see over the next couple of years in the world of intelligent automation. What do you think is going to be happening? Is it more of the same? Is there new technologies or capabilities that you think might come out, new ways of working? Have you got any thoughts on the next 6, 12, 18 or 24 months?
I think it's a really difficult question to answer, because I sometimes feel you almost don't know what you don't know, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm not from a particularly STEM background. I started in this industry just coming off a call centre, so I don't have a technology background. So I think there will be more advancements. I just don't know where those advancements will be. I think we're going to see a lot of the same. We've got all these peripheral intelligent automation, artificial intelligence, all these different peripheral systems that make up ecosystems, but everything in the core really comes back to RPA. So I think potentially, we're still seeing growth in RPA, we're still seeing new companies adopting it and things like that. But yeah, I think there may be more advancements to come, but I think those advancements will slow down, because I think we've hit those peak key, the the natural language processing of, being able to do it with text and speech analytics and all those sorts of things. So it's how far that can go, really, as we push further into that sort of AI world. And I don't know how comfortable I am as well in some elements of how far that will go. So that's something that I'm interested to keep an eye on and see how that progresses.
Excellent. So if we've learned anything, is that you don't actually have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
So, which is unfortunate, Nikki, because I think we all were dead keen on trying to figure out where to place our next bets. But I think you're right. Right now, we're seeing some incredible advancements, mainly in the world of research, and we are now having to rethink a lot of how work could be done in different ways. Certainly, augmentation of the employee, I think, is the name of the day right now, and I'll be really interested to continue to see how this develops, and of course how it develops anew, and what those new tools, capabilities, and ways of working are going to be that become your norm over the next 12 months and beyond. So, Nikki, thank you ever so much for joining us on Bots and Beyond this week. Really appreciate your time, your insights. I'm sure the audience have got a load out of this, and I'm sure if anyone is interested in learning more about yourself, I guess feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best way to reach you.
Yes, yeah, it is, absolutely.
Fantastic. So thank you, Nikki. Thank you all for listening to this week's Bots and Beyond, and we'll be back with another episode in a couple of weeks.